What a great introduction.
Sorry, thank you everybody for coming.
I think it's great to see so many people here on a Friday night. I know somebody's will be gutted at Scotland's score, but hey ho, if you're used to it by now. Somebody's made it strange that a guy in his early 20s has come to a political meeting tonight. There's a lot of reasons for it. I am still involved in politics. We're a year on almost from this point in the independence vote. And not one single promise from the unionist parties has been kept. So all that spiel they gave us, put better together, is proving to be a complete and utter nonsense. In Solidarity, we are unashamed to be 100% for independence. And some people have asked me, well, why stand in the election if SNP are standing? Show the SNP are the best route to independence. And we agree that the SNP are indeed the best route to independence. And that's why as Solidarity Group we did not oppose the SNP in the Westminster election. We made the decision that as many votes as possible to get the unionist parties out of Westminster, out of Scotland. So that's why Solidarity never stood in the Westminster elections, but in the Scottish election there's something quite different. Now Tommy will explain in more detail than I will about why it's no good idea to give the SNP their first and second vote. But Solidarity offers something very different from the SNP. The SNP are a capitalist party. They don't offer anything radically different. They did fantastic to get the independence on the agenda. They did fantastic to get the vote out there for us. But beyond that, there's nothing radical that they're offering. They're offering maybe really light austerity, little wee cuts and little investment here and there. We dream of something completely and utterly different in Solidarity. I would have a wee confession to make. I'm part of the 1%. Know the 1% of millionaires we hear about every so often. The 1% that control the banks and the media and the multinational companies. I'm part of a different 1%. And that 1% is a young person that grew up in care and went to university. Out of tens of thousands of kids in Scotland that have grew up in care, only 1% make it to university. And that is a shameful, shameful indictment in society. Of course, that 1% are all working class kids. The kids in care are a minority group in Scotland, yet we never hear the SNP or Labour talk about this hugely disadvantaged group. So I speak now as somebody who went to university as a social worker, and I see the drastic and horrific impact that the cuts have. They say that to protect public services. The public services are being destroyed. You know, we told we're better together, a better economy and this and that, and the economy will grow. The only economy and businesses grown in Aberdeen is the bloody legal high shops and the pawn shops and the charity shops and the, you know, sell your clothes. You get shops in Aberdeen, you sell your clothes, and you get £1 for a kilo. That's the industry that has grown in Aberdeen. We're meant to be proud of that. I hope to help today create a local branch in Solidarity, so we fight for something very, very different. Again, we're told, oh, there's no money. You know, we're going through a lean period of time. If I read the papers last week, George Osborne's promised our 500 million.
Mr. Sheridan says drinks all round.
Yeah, George Osborne's promised another £500 million for Trident nuclear weapons that nobody in Scotland en masse wants in the country. At the same time, every single week or month, you'll see on Facebook people organising charity for kids to get treatment. This kid, that kid to get life-saving treatment. But we can't afford to give kids life-saving treatment. What kind of society are we in? And again, where's the anger from our politicians? We hear politicians debate in little wee total debates, 1% tax rise here or wee cuts there. What we should be talking about is providing services and healthcare that ordinary people need. How can we be proud in our country when little kids and anybody can't get cancer treatment, can't get life-saving cures? It's absolutely disgusting. And something you'll hear right now is a debate on migration. We've all seen the bodies washed up on the shores of Europe, and I think the most part is disgusted mostly. I said, I'm very clear, I know Solidarity these are no migrants, these are refugees fleeing war, fleeing absolute hell on earth. And people say state of business. Well, Britain has aided the war against the people in Syria. We aided the war against Gaddafi. Britain's got blood on their hands. So I'm 100% behind helping these refugees, these men, women, their children. And going back a couple hundred years ago, it's Irish that's come here. And maybe because they are white, maybe the right-wing media have got a different impression of them. But even back then, they were against it. Every day in the Daily Mail, they're telling us about migrants. They're coming to get our benefits. They're coming to take our jobs. The owner of the Daily Mail is a billionaire offshore account. The owner of the Sun, multi-billionaire, doesn't care. It's about creating a divide between us and them. That's their agenda. And we need to get wise to that. And we need to reach out and help these people. And folks about Brett, there's no houses, there's no jobs. There absolutely is houses and there is jobs in Scotland. It's the capitalist system that stops people getting jobs. It's the capitalist system that stops investment in houses because they know if everybody's comfortable, they'll rebel against the richest and the most powerful. They want us to hate and fight each other every single week. There's these scummy programmes on Channel 5 and BBC, Benefits Scroungers, Benefits Wedding, and you get all these horrible programmes. And it's not designed to help us, it's designed to create hate. We're meant to hate each other. These people are on benefits because of the capitalist policies of Thatcher and New Labour that took jobs away from working class communities. We must be wise to that and no allow the political establishment to create hatred between us. Only last night there was a better programme on TV. It was about people with disabilities running a hotel. And that's the kind of society we'd want for every single person in our society to have a place. You know, just because you've got disabilities, you know, it should not exclude you from society. And that's the kind of society we should be reaching out to. One is the love and compassion. On the subject of migrants and refugees and such like, our NHS, which is valued, would fall apart without immigrants coming. You know, it was some of the best specialists. About 3 years ago now, I was in a hospital bed. I had life-threatening surgery. If it wasn't for the migrants, it wasn't for the people who come here to work, I probably wouldn't be sitting here now. So I think we've got a great responsibility to accept things and appreciate the input we have. And Scottish people work very, very well with migrants. It's not us and them, it's working together. Yeah, so I guess I talked to a lot of people about socialism, a better society, better wages for ordinary workers. You know, locally, a Scottish-owned pharmaceutical company will have that. We don't have to raise money for life-saving treatments, but instead we've got like GlaxoSmithKline that charge our NHS billions of pounds for medicine, which is a disgrace. So as part of Solidarity, we push for a publicly owned pharmaceutical company. We push for every public service we owned. It's getting a bit colder now, and for me it's an inconvenience, but for a lot of disabled people and elderly, it's fear. They're fearing about heating their bloody home they have to eat. Every year, hundreds of, I don't know if it's thousands, certainly hundreds of elderly die in their homes because they can't afford to heat and eat. And for a developed country like Scotland with all the oil and gas, that's an absolute disgrace. But when we talk about publicly owned oil and gas, we're called radical, we're called crazy, we're called loonies. Why is it so crazy and radical to want publicly owned oil and gas to stop the elderly dying in hypothermia? Having elderly dying is a disgrace, and that's radical towards the right. So what was once normal to discuss public owned services is now we're called crazy, we're called left loonies. To me, that's about human love and compassion. So we're here today, and I hope what we can do at the end is, after Tommy's spoken, is sit around and talk. There's snacks here and there's room to talk. I hope a lot of you will consider joining Solidarity. You're just here to hear Tommy speak. I want you to join. No, so you put your subs in, your money in. I want you to join, put your skills, your compassion, your love for society to shape something in Aberdeen. Aberdeen is a very, very difficult city to be poor in. The poverty in Aberdeen is often hidden, but it's every bit as bad as in every other part of Scotland. So because you're here tonight, I want you to join us. I want you to help shape a political establishment that will go to the Scottish Parliament, will be part of the council, will be part of every part of society, and will challenge inequality, will challenge poverty, and will challenge the hypocrisy of the councillors here cutting back in services. So that's what I've got to say. I'm happy to speak with anybody at the end of this, but I'll pass you on to Tommy.
Thank you very much.
Hi everybody, thanks very much. As Brett has said, Friday night it might not be the first choice to come to a political meeting, but many of you have decided to make that choice, and I appreciate that. I've got to say just at the outset, Sarah needs some congratulations. This is the first time she's ever done this. Sitting at a public. A lot of people, unless you've done this, you don't know how nerve-wracking it can be just to speak in front of people that you don't know. So she's done brilliantly, and she can now have a wee glass of wine as a reward. Can I also mention Brett, who I thought gave you an excellent contribution from the heart, somebody who's walked the walk and is therefore able to talk the talk. This is somebody who is brought up in care, struggled all his life to get to university, and is now working with young people who are in care and trying to care for them, trying to let them know that he understands the problems and the challenges that they're going through. And therefore, Brett's socialism comes very much from his experience of life, and his love for humanity is what makes him a socialist. And I'm very, very proud to come here and share a platform with you, Brett. He's been a long-term friend, and when I've got people like Brett in Solidarity, I know I'm in the right political party as far as I'm concerned. I also want to say just at the outset, and it is important, I think we get some principles laid out before I go on to talk about the things that I want to raise tonight. Solidarity is a pro-independence party. Solidarity is a socialist party. Solidarity is a party that believes in humanity. And therefore, Brett's asked you to consider joining us. If you look at what has happened over this last few weeks in relation to Syria, in relation to what's taking place in Hungary, if you look at your TV screens and your newspapers and what you see is migrants, Solidarity is probably not the party for you. If you look at those individuals who are struggling to escape war-torn regions in order to save their children's lives, and when you look at those pictures, you see men, women and children, then Solidarity is the party for you. We see these people as human beings. Our motto is regardless of colour, regardless of creed, regardless of religion, regardless of nationality, we are all part of one race. It's called the human race. And it's about time some of the politicians woke up to that reality. Instead of trying to blame those who are the victims of poverty, as we get from the UKIPs and the Tory parties of the world, who try and blame the victims for low pay, the victims for housing shortages, the victims for problems in our health service. Let's stop blaming the poor for the problems in society and start blaming those responsible. The rich, the bosses, the politicians, those are the ones that are responsible. Those are the ones that should be blamed, brothers and sisters. We believe fundamentally in Solidarity that there is absolutely no need whatsoever for austerity. Austerity. They tell us that it's the only show in town. They tell us that there is no alternative. A bit like Thatcher used to tell us in the 80s. Brothers and sisters, austerity is merely punishing the poor for the greed and the mistakes of the rich. That's what austerity is. And we in Solidarity are standing in these elections next year on a policy platform that includes 5 main areas that I want to discuss with you tonight. 5 main areas that I hope will inspire you to say, I'm going to get involved with that. I agree with that and I'm going to fight for that. Number 1, as Brett has already said, we're a pro-independence party. What does that mean? That means not that we want independence so that we can change the colour of the flag that waves above the Aberdeen municipal buildings. We want independence so that we can change the level of pension that we're paying our pensioners, so that we can change the level of wage that we're paying our ordinary workers, so that we can change from investing in weapons of mass destruction and instead invest in essential health care for our children, so that we can invest in smaller class sizes and more teachers, so that every single child that goes to a school in Scotland gets the same chance as the rich can provide for their kids when they pay for private education for them. Why do we accept? Why do we accept it's all right for the Gordonstowns in the world, for all of the private schools to have average class sizes of 12 and 14, but we accept in our state schools 30 and 33? That's just unacceptable to us in a society as rich as ours. So independence for us, independence isn't an end in and of itself. Independence is a means to an end. It's a means to transforming Scotland. It's a means to realising the dream that we all have of another Scotland being possible. A Scotland that puts people before profit. A Scotland that spends its available cash not on tax cuts, not in investments in these abhorrent nuclear weapons, but in actually the most important resource we have in Scotland, our people. That's the most important resource, and that's what we believe independence can deliver. It can deliver us the opportunity to change society for the better. In other words, we see our chance of developing a socialist society through the prism of an independent Scotland. We think an independent Scotland will also encourage our brothers and sisters in England, our brothers and sisters in Wales. It will encourage them to also seek democracy for them, seek more control over the decisions which affect their lives as well. So we're going to be standing in the election next May. It's already there in our bones of our manifesto. We want a second referendum. That's what we're standing for. We want a mandate from the people of Scotland for a second referendum. Why? Because we think we were conned. We think we were lied to. We think we were bullied. We think we were cheated. When you had the British biased corporation telling us day in and day out that we weren't big enough, we weren't rich enough, we weren't smart enough, telling us day in and day out, oh, independence, you'll lose your pensions. Independence, Asda's going to leave. Independence, Tesco's going to leave. Independence, the Royal Bank of Scotland's going to leave. A lot of lies, but deliberately targeted at the elderly, in particular, to create fear. Fear of the unknown. Fear of change. Many of the elderly, and you know them yourselves, many of the elderly thought in their heart of hearts, I'm not prepared to go for this because I'm worried that my standard of life is going to be taken from me. I'm worried that the security that I have is going to be taken from me. And who can blame them? Who can blame them for being worried? With all of the garbage that they were fed day in, day out. Every single time there was a story, it was always negative about the yes campaign, positive about the no campaign. The truth of the matter is, We were bullied by the British establishment, baring its teeth and its claws. They were determined to crush our dream. They were determined to tell us to go home and think again because we're no good enough. Brothers and sisters, despite all of that, we're going to have a rally on the 19th of September in George Square. Hope Over Fear is organising a big rally. We're going to George Square on the 19th of September, and I hope all of you will join us. And we're going there to do two things. We're going there to say loud and clear, we're still yes. That's why we're going to be there on the 19th of September. We're still yes. But we're also going there to demand Indy Ref 2. Because you know what? The British establishment can play the card of the lies and the false promises and the bullying. They can play that card as effectively as they did last year. But they can't play it as effectively the next time. They can't play it as effectively the next time. And I would argue, in politics goes in cycles. I would warn those who are saying, oh no, not yet, wait a wee while. Politics goes in cycles. The longer you wait, the more Westminster will pass on cuts and cuts and cuts, and people will get disillusioned. People will get disillusioned and they will be undermined in their confidence. And instead of waiting to get a higher vote, you might wait and get a lower vote. I think, Solidarity thinks, that what we should do is stand next year, all of the pro-independence parties, stand on a commitment to Indy Ref 2. And if we are elected, if the pro-independence parties form a majority in Holyrood next May, that's a mandate. That's a mandate. Not for 2017, the local elections, may have a European referendum. But in 2018, the calendar's clear. Let's get a mandate next year for 2018 for the Indy Ref 2. That's the position. That's the position we're going to be fighting on. And I believe in my heart of hearts, brothers and sisters, we already have a majority for yes now. And we can build on that so that by the time we get to 2018, we'll not be talking about 53%, as we were told in the poll the other day. We'll be talking about 60 and 63% as a minimum. You know, I remember sitting in the BBC studios in the heart of the beast on the 18th of September, sitting there with that absolute aberration, that oxy moron. Because how else can you describe a Labour Lord? That's an oxymoron, a Labour Lord. How can you have a Labour Lord? Brett mentioned earlier, you know, about the scum media that we've got, the Daily Mail and the scum itself, by Mr. Murdoch, and how they try and demonise people and benefit, how they try and divide the working class. I've got to say here tonight, you may be surprised to hear this, I've got to say here tonight, Solidarity is 100% implacably opposed to benefit scoundrels. That's why we're going to close the House of Lords, to get rid of the benefit scoundrels. That's why we're closing it. £300 a day they go and pick up, and then have the temerity to attack somebody who's trying to survive on £73 a week GISA. How dare they? How dare these people, representatives of the British establishment? I sat in that studio with that Lord John Reid, with his smirk in his face, and wee Glenn was sitting looking at the teleprinter. And he was about to speak to me, and he said, oh, wait a wee minute. Here's a tweet from Joanne Lament. And of course the tweet was, great victory for Scottish Labour tonight. And then Glenn came to me and I said, Glenn, Miss Lamont and all of the Labour Party hierarchy ought to go and look up the term Pyrrhic victory. Pyrrhic victory. It comes from a Greek general who, in the course of trying to execute a war, he expended so many of his troops to win one particular battle that he ended up losing the war. He lost so many troops in that one battle that he ended up losing the war. Brothers and sisters, Pyrrhic victory for Scottish Labour. They may have won the battle of the referendum, but they've lost the war for the hearts and the minds of the people of Scotland. That's the reality of what happened last year. So we believe we've got everything to gain and nothing to lose from putting Indy Ref 2 firmly at the top of our agenda. Right next to it, right next to that is a policy platform, is anti-austerity. You see, words can be effective. Words can be inspiring. But as one old socialist used to say to me, it takes money to buy beer. In other words, words of opposition to austerity are no longer good enough. What we need now is defiance, not compliance. We've got to say to Westminster, we've got to say to that monster, you have no mandate in this country. You have absolutely no mandate whatsoever. So when they pass up reduced budgets to the Scottish Parliament, and the Scottish Parliament passes on reduced budgets to the 32 local authorities across Scotland, we've got to say loud and clear to the local authorities and to the Scottish Parliament, why on earth should we accept cuts to elderly care, cuts to home helps, cuts for music lessons for our kids in school, cuts in opportunities for young people leaving school and getting jobs with the local authorities? Why should we accept these cuts when there is no mandate for them whatsoever? We are saying loud and clear at this election next year, a vote for solidarity is a vote for needs budgets in every single local authority. Not cuts budgets, needs budgets. Set budgets based on what people require, the services that are required. And if there's a deficit, let's fight Westminster for the deficit. Let's not pass on the cuts to the poor and the vulnerable and the low paid. Let's not make public service workers pay any longer for a mess that's got absolutely nothing to do with them. Think about this, folks. Think about it. We're supposed to be living in an economic recession. We're supposed to be living in a time of economic calamity. Who caused the calamity? Was it your health service workers? Was it your postie? Was it the bin collectors? They've got nothing to do with it. Well, they've got nothing to do with it. Why are they having to pay for it? That's what we have to say loud and clear here. And when people say, but Tommy, you know, you want a minimum wage of £10 an hour. You want a wage that means that when somebody's working, they actually can afford to live. You know, solidarity. Solidarity is utterly opposed to a description that's managed to get into our everyday lexicon of language. We want to get rid of it. We want to remove it. It's a saying, brothers and sisters, and you'll have heard it. The working poor. The working poor. See, if you're working, why the hell are you poor? We should get rid of that idea altogether. What we need is living wages. What we need is the Tesco's and the Asda's and the Morrisons of the world. Instead of expecting you to bail out their staff. Because they think, oh, it's all right, we can pay poverty pay. They can claim working families tax credit, they can claim housing benefit, they can claim council tax benefit. We're making billions, but we'll get the taxpayer to top up the wages of the staff so that we can continue to make billions, so that we can pay chief executives tens of millions every single year. No! We're not having that! We're not having that!